Hi, welcome back to day 26 of the Light the World, Build the Kingdom Challenge, where each day we ask God what is one thing that we can do to build the kingdom, to make the world a better place, and then act upon whatever comes. Today I've been thinking about how a lot of times we view when something is destroyed or disruptive, or we lose something in our lives, or things change and the old way of doing things is gone, we look at that very negatively. As humans, I don't think we really like change, and especially when we see change happening that is involving the destruction of something that we enjoyed or how things were in the past, we look at that as that's a bad thing. You know, we just label that as a bad thing automatically. But really, when something happens that looks devastating, that looks destructive, it actually is a signal that something higher and better is on its way to you. If you're going through something very difficult, the destruction of a marriage or a career, or maybe you're suffering the loss of a loved one or something like that, and there's an upheaval in your life, instead of letting it just consume you and you look at it as something horrible, turn it around and look at it as something good is on the way to you. Now I'm going to share a little story. This is about my mom. Now, my mom had a house that was built in the 60s, and she always wanted it remodeled for about the last 20 years that she lived there. It was falling apart in some places, and she just really wanted a remodel. Well, my dad was never the kind of guy that was going to do a remodel. He just really didn't care about that kind of thing. But then they needed a new roof, and a man came around and said he could fix the roof. It was, you know, gave my dad a good deal, and my dad decided to hire this guy off the street to do the roof. Well, the man put his workers out there, and all of his workers, they spoke a different language. They didn't speak English, and my parents couldn't really communicate with them. But the man set these workers to work on the roof and then left. And then it started to rain. And all the workers just got up and left, and they didn't put any kind of tarp over the house, the roof at all. And so my parents' house was ruined. I mean, it's just like probably 3/4 of the house. The walls were ruined, the floors were ruined, the furniture got ruined. My parents had to move out for about a month. The insurance had to pay. They paid for most of it. My dad had to pay for some of it, but they got a remodel. My mother got her remodel. And it really upset her that all of this happened, and she just saw it all as a bad thing. But I kept kind of trying to tell her, you know, you're getting your remodel, you know, and she was able to remodel a lot of the house the way she wanted it, you know, and it looked like a bad thing, but had it not happened, she wouldn't have got the remodel that she always wanted. So sometimes when we set these goals for things, and we want something so much better, and we want to upgrade our life, or we want to create a higher level order in our life, we think we can just do that like walking up into it and it's just a natural thing. But no, most of the time you've got to reset something. You have to lose something. You know, I love the story of the children of Israel, you know, where they're brought out of Egypt, they're brought out of bondage, and they have this sort of bondage thinking. You know, they're used to being slaves for 400 years. They don't know how to think like a free people. They're used to being told every little thing to do. And so when Moses comes down off the mountain with God's initial higher commandment of how to treat each other with, you know, in loving ways, probably more like what Jesus taught, you know, on the Sermon of the Mount, they couldn't handle that. They were down there doing idols and worshiping calves, and, you know, Moses broke that law and had to go back up and get the 10 Commandments and the Levitical law and this meticulous law that told them every little thing to do. Well, this group of people, they weren't ready for that higher level of order. They weren't ready for the blessings of a promised land. If they had gone in and got that promised land, they would have ended up being slaves to someone else or worshiping the idols of the people around them. And so they wandered for 40 years in the wilderness, and only Joshua and Caleb, the two that said, hey, we can do this, the Lord's with us, only those two of that first group got to go in. And it's interesting that if you look at a promised land, a lot of times we think we want our own promised land. Sometimes that's a literal land, or we want certain blessings in our lives, and we think that we can just get them, maybe just with time or positive thinking or whatever. But there's a level of destruction that goes on. Those people had to die off. Those faithless people, different groups, the ones that were immoral, the ones that were idolatrous, all these ones, they gradually, they were killed off. Plagues killed them off, and they were weeded out. And then when they went into the promised land, those inhabitants that were there, that were idol worshipers and all these kind of false god type things and immoral people, they had to be wiped out. So there's this cleansing that has to go on inside of our lives, inside of ourselves, that makes us capable of receiving that higher blessing, that new thing that we're asking God for. So don't be surprised, especially if you set some goal of something, big that you don't think you can get right away. Be prepared. You will pay a price for it. But the price is always worth it because you're going to become something. And I think what really a promised land is, and this is something that my bishop at church told me when I went through the simultaneous loss of my mother and the divorce and was kicked out of my house and all this stuff all at once last year. He said, you're being taken to a promised land, but it's not necessarily a place, it's who you're becoming. And that was what the children of Israel were doing. They were becoming more. They were becoming a people who trusted God, who knew how to be free, who knew how to really accept the land flowing with milk and honey, the abundance that God wanted to bring them. And so when you run into these challenges, instead of going, oh, woe is me, and this is also bad, and it's always going to be bad, or however we want to wallow a lot of times, flip it around, say something amazing's coming. I'm going to become someone so much more. God sees more potential in you. He saw more potential in the children of Israel. He just had to get all the gunk out of the way, So anyway, think about that in your own life, the things that you've gone through and the things you've lost, and think about how you're being taken and how you have been taken to a better place, a stronger place, a more trusting place, trusting in God. And if you're not there yet, you'll get there, okay? Just hang on, keep looking to God, and you will get to that place of higher rest and higher order in your life. Y'all take care. God bless. I hope you'll keep joining me in the 90-day challenge. If you haven't started it, hop in now. You don't have to do it for you don't have to go back and look at the others. They're not necessarily building on each other. I'm just giving you a new thought every day. So just hop in, ask God, what's that one thing that you can do today to make the world a better place, and then do it. Bye-bye.